Yes, thank you. I saw you.
I'm actually.
Okay, guys, if you're here for please make sure you have a t-shirt on and a mask, and then come
Oh, cool. Yeah, this is fine. I'm like, yeah.
Okay. Oh, I
It was two.
Great. So, do you start standing?
I was maybe pushing a lot of it right now.
So we're gonna get everybody back. Can you do a mic check? Sure can. About 5 minutes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was like, how did I don't even know I did. Since you go to somebody else, but like whatever. I haven't gotten it yet, but yeah, I know.
Hey Bailey, can you hear me here?
They're in the laundry basket. Vanessa, Chelsea, what you had I hope I look great.
Oh, no, it's not.
You're allowed to. Smart. So, can we see everyone? Chelsea?
Sorry.
That I'd like for people in the front. Yeah. Are you set up and good to go? Yes. I know. Oh, you're like in the shoulder. Okay. All right, everybody ready to roll? Okay, thank you so much. How does this look, Chelsea? Should we space out a different way? Thank you for some feedback. All right. Okay, thank you. Oh, can everyone hear? Yep. Cool. All right, hello. Thank you everyone so much for being here today. My name is Patricia Paliuca with Mass Liberation Arizona.
Can you spell it, please?
PATRICIAPAGLIUCA. On May 25th of 2020, George Floyd was murdered in cold blood by Minneapolis police. That same day in Arizona, Dion Johnson, another black man, was murdered by an Arizona Department of Public Safety trooper. That summer, thousands of people took to the streets in outrage and grief. They were met by Phoenix Police Department, the nation's most deadly force, dressed in riot gear, aiming and firing their weapons at people who were simply exercising their First Amendment rights. Last summer, police arrested over 400 protesters from May to November. The Phoenix Police Department specifically targeted, surveilled, and arrested black leaders, organizers, and activists. They colluded with prosecutors from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office to falsely charge their critics so they could lock them away, some for over 40 years if convicted. These are and always have been political prosecutions. Today, there was supposed to be a hearing to tell a judge why these charges needed to be dropped with prejudice, which means they cannot be brought up ever again. During this hearing, defense attorneys would have presented proof of misconduct by Phoenix Police Department and the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, and evidence of lies and false testimony given by the police department and the Maricopa County Attorney Office prosecutors. Despite knowing the charges are false, Maricopa County Attorney Office held on to these charges until the very last moment. Early this morning, Ryan Green, the prosecutor who was assigned to these cases after April Sponsel, who was put on administrative leave, she's the prosecutor, one of the main orchestrators of this web of lies. He filed a motion to dismiss the charges with prejudice. The fact that the Maricopa County Attorney's Office continues to play each of these cases down to the wire when they know they do not have a case is absolute misconduct. It is absolutely malicious prosecution. It is not acceptable, and we will not stand for it. Today, we will be hearing from people who have been part of this long journey to get these charges dropped. You will hear from the attorney who filed the original motion that led to today's dismissal, an attorney who is representing hundreds of protesters in civil complaints against both Phoenix Police Department and the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. And you will hear from a directly impacted protester from last summer. Finally, you will hear the demands of the people we represent from the communities most impacted by these ongoing harms. Let's begin today with Cathie Brody, the attorney who originally filed the motion to dismiss the October 17th cases with prejudice today.
I'm going to applaud all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? I am Cathie Brody. I am a lawyer here in private practice in Phoenix. And I wanted to talk to you about what happened today and what was going to happen if we were in court. The Maricopa County Attorney's Office did the right thing today by dismissing these charges with prejudice against all of these protesters. But these charges and the other charges against the other protesters should have been dismissed a long time ago, and it shouldn't have taken hundreds and hundreds of people to get these charges dismissed with prejudice. The timing of the agency's decision, even though they did the right thing today, the timing of the agency's decision makes it clear that the reason for dismissing those charges with prejudice today was to avoid accountability, to avoid going into court today, to avoid accountability for the agency's own misconduct, to avoid accountability for the Phoenix Police's misconduct. And they were scared to come into court because the public and the court would finally see the entirety of the government's misconduct in this case and the related cases, and they would finally be held accountable. And MCAO was scared to come into court today for a good reason. They knew that we planned to tell the judge today that the egregious misconduct that she identified in the grand jury presentation in this case is just one piece of a much larger pattern of government misconduct. It's just a single expression of a much, much greater and deeper problem in the Maricopa County Attorney's Office and in the Phoenix Police Department. They know we have hard evidence, mountains of evidence, police reports, internal emails, other documents, and that evidence, that hard evidence, it's almost entirely documents that were produced to us in this case by the county attorney and in public records that they released from that office. That's the evidence. So they have it. And that evidence shows without a doubt that that there is a pattern of the Phoenix activity, and they're targeting based on their viewpoint. And this goes back years before the summer of 2020. Years before the summer of 2020, the Phoenix police have been targeting racial justice, immigrants' rights, and anti-police demonstrators and activists. They've been targeting them for violence, for surveillance, for arrests, and felony prosecutions for years. And the evidence also shows that the leadership in both offices, all the way up to the top in both the Maricopa County Attorney's Office and the Phoenix Police Department, they knew about this pattern of misconduct. They knew about all of the people involved in the pattern of misconduct, and they knew about it for years before the summer of 2020, and they didn't stop it, and in fact, they encouraged it. The evidence also shows that we can see the reasons that the Phoenix Police and the Maricopa County Attorney's Office did this. Why would they do this? Why would they target these anti-police protesters? Why would they not stop this pattern of misconduct that they knew about for years? And why wouldn't they stop it when they knew all about what was happening in real time, all during the summer of 2020? They targeted these protesters for felony arrest and felony prosecution, not just because they disagreed with their viewpoints. They did disagree with their viewpoints, and that is very clear in the evidence. But the evidence also shows that MCAO was targeting racial justice activists in the summer of 2020 for felony prosecutions based on officers' fabrications. They're doing it to earn kudos for their work and to score political points. That's the motivation behind these prosecutions. That's why they're political prosecutions, and the evidence shows it. So now, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, the Phoenix Police Department, the employees, the leaders in those agencies, they still need to be held accountable for this misconduct. They need to be held accountable for coming after the protesters for these felony prosecutions, to intimidate them, to scare other people away from expressing their views, and to score political points and stay in office. They need to be held accountable for that. Today we got the result we wanted. It's the right result, but we had to work very, very hard to get here. I worked very hard, and all of these people and hundreds of other people worked very, very hard for us to get here. We didn't get our day in court, but that evidence will come out, and we will have our day in court eventually. And the agencies and the leaders, they're going to be held accountable for their violence and the egregious constitutional violations that they've inflicted against so many people in this community. Thank you.
Can you spell your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Cathie Brody, Kathybrody.
And your title again?
Yeah, I'm an attorney in private practice. My law firm is Mitchell, Stein, Stein, Carey, Carey, Chapman, Chapman.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we will hear from civil rights attorney Heather Hamill of the People's Law Firm.
Figure out where to set this down.
Okay, thank you for that introduction, Patricia. Like Patricia said, my name is Heather Hamill. I am a civil rights attorney, and I work for the People's Law Firm. As has come to light, or as we've learned, the Phoenix Police Department and Maricopa County Attorney's Office's First Responders Bureau have engaged in an obscene campaign to silence, intimidate, and jail civil rights activists fighting against police brutality. This escalating effort to undermine racial justice and free speech through gross distortions of law is not new for this office. It's only the latest in a years-long pattern of overreach, police abuse, and prosecutorial misconduct aimed at assisting this state's racist police forces. For example, between 2009 to 2014, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office initiated a host of false prosecutions against individuals who they believed were political opponents of Andrew Thomas and Sheriff Joe Arpaio. In June of 2019, MCAO colluded with PPD's Tactical Response Unit to maliciously prosecute community leader and Black Lives Matter prosecutions starting from July 18th of 2020 and ending on October 17th, 2020, represent MCAO's latest effort to weaponize our criminal legal system in order to destroy and dismantle a popular movement that they disagree with. Our office has filed a notice of claim expressing our intent to file suit on behalf of all protesters impacted by these political prosecutions because those individuals should be made whole. But repairing the enormous amount of harm done doesn't end with that lawsuit, which is why we are here supporting the community demands for accountability, greater accountability at the County Attorney's Office and within PPD. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. Next up, we will hear from a Phoenix activist, one of the protesters who was falsely charged this past summer, but whose charges have not yet been dropped with prejudice.
Check. Peace and love. My name is Milton Holley. It's my slave name, but I go by the name Philae Nico. I was one of the, I'm a hip hop activist, and I was one of the hundreds upon hundreds of activists that were falsely charged last year, and one of the thousands upon thousands of revolutionaries that will continue to be charged since the beginning of this American capitalistic exploited system. I'm sure we've all been accused of something in life. I mean, I'm sure we've all had that feeling, so we know what it feels like to be accused of something that we know we didn't do. But there's no worse feeling than facing your freedom because of that false accusation. You see, I've seen enough to know that the justice system has been unfair to poor working class Americans, and even more the African American. So when I wasn't really, when even though my charges were ridiculous, even though I knew how innocent I was, the feeling and thought of losing my freedom was still imminent because of that fact. I mean, imagine just being somebody who, who's never been arrested, never really gotten into trouble, and you're just out there peacefully protesting, non-violently protesting for the simple right of other humans to live, and you get arrested, and you get detained, and you get treated like a criminal, and then they tell you that you're being charged for something that you know you didn't do, and you know that you would never do in your life. You know what I'm saying? So I was charged with aggravated assault on an officer, felony rioting, and a long list of other misdemeanor charges. You'd have thought I was at the Capitol that day, whatever had happened that day. Like, you would have thought like that happened that day, and that's far from the truth. And so people have to understand it creates paranoia and fear on top of the paranoia and fear that we already deal with in this society. We deal with a lot in this society. I was arrested and treated like a criminal, and my innocence and guilt hadn't been determined yet. But in the words of Chairman Fred Hampton, God rest his soul, you could jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail a revolution. And it's time for all of us to be revolutionaries, because injustice never sleeps, hate never sleeps. So we have to always have love on our mind continuously, and we have to be revolutionary. A revolutionary is somebody who's willing to fight for change. We're fighting to change the way humans treat humans. We're fighting the way people treat people. And all we have to do is change the way humans treat humans. That's all we're fighting for. And so all we're asking is for people to continue to fight as a community, continue to come together as people, as oppressed people, and to continue to support organizations like Mass Liberation, which I stand in full solidarity with all their demands, and continuing to educate yourself as a person, and as an American, and as a human, to make sure that you can be aware of all of these problems and issues. We're really glad that some of these charges have been dropped with prejudice, but we still have a lot more cases to go. Thank you very much. FE''LA.
I'm sorry, can you repeat it again?
FE''LAINIKO is my last name. Philae Nico. Thank you.
Thank you, Philae, Cathie, and Heather so much. So last month, Mass Liberation Arizona delivered over 5,000 petitions to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office to remind Alistair Adele that our communities and her constituents have been watching the way her office has trampled over the very idea of justice simply for political gain. Dropping the charges with prejudice was the first of 4 demands that were listed in our petition, followed by ending all political prosecutions, disbanding the First Responders Bureau, whose chief just resigned, and paying reparations to all people harmed by political prosecutions. The fact that it took us months to get false charges dropped, the fact that the harms continue to pile up on people whose lives are being destroyed. We have no confidence in Alistair Adele or anyone within that office. Today, we demand Alistair Adele resign from office immediately. We will be seeking disbarment. There is no excuse for this misconduct, no excuse for the lies. We absolutely will not tolerate it. If she does not resign, we will recall her. Thank you.
That concludes. Thank you so much, everyone.
Can we ask some questions?
Actually, can I ask if, and anybody can respond. So the county attorney's office put out a statement today about the decision, and I'd like anybody to step forward and get your take to it. So I'm going to read just the first couple paragraphs, if that's okay. It says, today, the Maricopa County Attorney's Office filed a motion to dismiss all charges stemming from the events of October 17th with prejudice. It's the decision of this office that is in the interest of justice to not proceed. Prosecutors must continually assess all the facts, evidence, and circumstances surrounding my case. I believe we must not be afraid to change course when it serves the interest of justice, and it is in the best interest of the community. My decision today reflects just that. I want to be clear that this decision does not mean that no crimes were committed. The decision in no way reflects negatively on the hard work law enforcement performed that night in preventing violence and property damage and other crimes to keep our community safe. It goes on with much of the same. So it's mostly that last paragraph. Would anyone like to address that? The decision in no way reflects negatively on the hard work of law enforcement that night.
Yeah, thank you for asking about that, and I did see that just before this press conference, and I guess I'm going to try to go slow so I say the right thing, but what I would say about that is it is very disappointing, to say the least, that County Attorney Adele would continue to congratulate the Phoenix police officers who colluded with the employees in her office to bring these bogus charges against these and other protesters. It's disappointing, but that just confirms what I said to you all earlier, which is that even though they made the right decision today to dismiss these charges with prejudice, they didn't do it for the right reasons, and the reasons clearly are political.
I think the evidence is pretty clear. The evidence that's been disclosed to us by Alistair Adele's office, that her own officers that night, through their own body-worn camera footage, show that they were committing property damage and violence themselves. And so it's a little bit ironic to make those statements within a press release, given that fact, given everything we know, which Ms. Brody already addressed, through all documents we've received from their office. We're not getting stuff, that's just secret or magical. It's been given to us through the same means that we get it through in every other case. We're supposed to get it. And so they've just been telling on themselves this entire time, and now that they've been caught fully, they finally don't have anything else to say. And so I think that all of those words fall flat. I think that there's nothing substantial behind them, and I don't think that any other statements are going to make anything right from Alistair Adele. And so I think she should probably comply with the demands that have been made.
So just to be clear, our stance, any Black leader, any directly impacted person, any organization on the right side of history and justice right now knows this statement is absolutely disgraceful. It's an embarrassment to the office. Really, how dare they? They are not remorseful. They are still justifying these completely false charges. And this is exactly why she and the entire office cannot be trusted. This is why we are calling for her resignation or her recall. Thank you. That concludes our testimony.
need help or you good?
Oh, yeah.
All right, I'll see you. I gotta run.
That's right.
Yeah, I have to go do it.
The last name's you don't have to say anything.
Yeah.